Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath, the podcast that explores the movies that influenced how we view love and romantic relationships. Yes, there will be spoilers. I'm your host, Diana Rojek Skonnord. What's it like to hold the hand of someone you love, interlinked?
Interlinked.
We're talking about Blade Runner 2049 from 2017, and Ryan Gosling will not return my calls, so I got this Ryan instead. Hi.
Interlinked. Hi, Diana.
How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Don't call our marriage that.
Cells?
I've seen this movie twice, so
yes.
Beg your pardon if all I remember is somebody says something, Ryan Gosling barks back, brr, 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 brr. Oh, I'm sure this is poetry.
Well, they only said the words like 20 times. I thought you'd remember enough to get my joke. But anyway, yes. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about this movie. We've been
Don't say we. You have been dropping hints.
I was going to say we've been mulling over whether this would make suitable podcast material for some time.
Still
okay. Well, you've been listening to me, and
yeah, that's great, honey. Pass the salt. This is your pick.
This is my pick. This started off as kind of a brainstorming kind of pick when I think there was a little gap in guest scheduling, and I think you were asking me like, are there any other movies you could do? And I was like, I don't think so. I was racking my brain for like which movies had romances in them that kind of resonated with me. And after a long time, this kind of popped into my head. It's like, oh yeah, that kind of like romantic B plot in Blade Runner 2049. I had some thoughts about that. And it was like, well, let's do that if we're desperate. And that was kind of the initial reaction. But over time, I kept thinking about it and more like, actually, I don't think that's such a bad idea. So
wow. So you wanted to save this for Tears in a Rainy Day? I am only awesome at this because Ryan showed me these choice clips from the first movie, and then we watched this movie, and then it's just like, I'm gonna sound really, really cool. And
I built this up in my mind quite a bit, and I actually went and watched the original Blade Runner before we watched this, just so I would have the proper context. And I gave Diana the cultural Cliff's Notes on the.
But important question: which cut did you watch?
Whichever one was on Netflix. I believe that's the final cut.
Right.
Which is like the actual director's cut, because there was a director's cut that was called as such, but Ridley Scott didn't actually sign off on it. Then the final cut is the one he did, or like he signed off on it, but he wasn't that involved, or there was some kind of objection. Yeah, I don't know. It's a whole. You can read the Wikipedia article. I don't pretend to understand this movie's history, but
so was it like the director of craft services cut? Like what? How can you call it the director's cut if like Ridley Scott's like, nah?
I guess that's just what you call a re-release back then. I don't know. I mean, the director's cut to Blade Runner, I want to say predates DVDs, or at least like the earlier days back before it was common for like every movie to have like the Ultimate Edition, or like the Steel Box Edition, or the
unrated.
Yeah.
There's 4 extra minutes of boobs in the credits. Mm-hmm. Because it was like not essential to the plot.
Which movie was like, oh yeah, it was the unrated DVD of Dodgeball. It was like the material they added was like so innocuous, and it was just like.
You mean Old School?
What?
You mean like, I remember they did the same thing for Old School.
I mean, that movie was like pretty R-rated to begin with, and like.
Yeah.
And like. Oh yeah, I think like with Dodgeball, it was released theatrically as PG-13, and there was like one line they had to cut that they put back in for the DVD, and it's like, it's now unwritten. The MPAA has not seen this cut, so there you go. It's not.
Well, it sells copies, and also I got a sweatband with my copy, so
right.
I own neither of them now. Okay.
So anyway, I saw the Blade Runner If You Can Dodge a Wrench cut, and it was.
Takes place in Las Vegas.
Right, yeah.
I assume. Did we actually get confirmation that they were in Las Vegas in this movie?
Yes, it was.
Right,
as we
with
were
the
watching,
gambling,
I was like, "Is this a post-apocalyptic Las Vegas, or am I just inserting my memories of, Fallout New Vegas or Call of Duty Ghosts or one of those video games?"
Yes to all of these things. So I want to tread carefully, because Blade Runner has a very, very loyal fan base,
Mm-hmm.
which means that there are so many opportunities to really, really piss people off. But this movie's existence has the potential to really, really piss people off. So I don't know if we're going to be the ones who's going to be doing too much, but
it is an interesting example of its breed, and like the rare franchise revival that was actually, you know, accepted as being pretty good, met some critical success, and most of the fans were happy with it.
yeah, but it didn't make very much money.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
But
People were like, I mean, yeah, I remember in the early advertising and stuff, it kind of blended together with it, like that Total Recall remake and a couple of other
That's unfortunate.
sci-fi things. Yeah, I know. It's like it'd been out for a while before it's like, oh, I should actually see this. Okay, you know.
I was always under the impression that this was going to do well because of the people involved. I don't know about the Total Recall remake or what was the other ones. It doesn't really matter, but okay. Really quick. So, and this is also one of those movies where the IMDb thing where it's just like, well, it's a sequel, so we can just make reference to the first shit, you know? Okay.
Right.
So young Blade Runner K, discovery of a long buried secret leads him to track down former Blade Runner Rick Deckard, who's been missing for 30 years. I'm like, okay, 30 years since the last Blade Runner, got it.
Yeah, and then someone just coming in off the street is like, "What is a Blade Runner? Are you going to explain that?"
I don't know, but it sounds awesome.
Yeah, which I guess is the only reason they're called. Yeah, it's the seeing the movie doesn't help you understand why they're called Blade Runners, and I think there's some production backstory where, like, Ridley Scott or maybe the screenwriter, someone involved in the production, like purchased the right to some other story just because they wanted to use that phrase. And it describes nothing of what a Blade Runner does. And in case you're in that camp, a Blade Runner is a futuristic cop who hunts down the replicants, who are artificially engineered humans who have, gone rogue and escaped. And they don't do more running than a regular police officer, and they don't use blades. So I think it's just one of those nickname things.
And replicants are...
we were struggling with that because, like, in the original movie they're described as robots, but only in the, like, they don't have any mechanical parts. They're just like genetically engineered humans who are only supposed to live for 4 years, except that was true in the first movie. In the sequel they're allowed to live longer, and they're not, like, they're supposed to be emotionally repressed, and there's a whole test to tell whether they're, whether they have regular human emotions or replicant emotions.
Mm-hmm. And if we go back for a minute, returning for this movie is technically Harrison Ford and Sean Young, although Sean Young in a very, very minor repeat role of sorts.
Archive footage / CGI puppetry.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
So we have them back in the cast. Ryan Gosling is still not returning my calls, but also plays quote unquote K. So if I'm saying K, I'm not being dismissive of what you are saying while agreeing with it. I'm saying that, well, he also, never mind, we'll get there.
Okay.
No. Ana de Armas as Joy.
Mm-hmm.
And you got Dave Bautista. Remember, James Olmos comes back as well. Robin Wright plays K's boss.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who the hell else is there?
Lots of people,
well,
actually.
Yeah, but unfortunately, like, this is in the order of appearance that I'm reading through, so it's just like, damn it, okay.
So the highlights include
Jared... not highlights, but lowlights, Jared Leto.
Diana did not care for that character.
I don't like Jared Leto either.
As a person?
I think not.
Oh, did he do something bad, or do you just not like his acting?
Just in general, he's just like a whole, like, yeah, I'm still here and I'm awesome. Like, no, not really.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's like that cross-generational thing where it started with Jordan Catalano. And, like, I get it too, but my sister had the whole thing from her first. And I also thought that I can't have a crush on the same people that people I know have a crush on.
Okay.
But the thing is, like, I don't think I like Jordan Catalano either. Okay.
I have no idea who that is.
That's fine. My So-Called Life, it was a teenage show back in the day. And it's strange that when he was in 30 Seconds to Mars, which is a band, not a fact, my niece had a crush on him when he was the leader of the band of that. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying you have a approximately 20-year span of two people in my life with a crush on the same guy, and I'm just like, this is creepy. It's a thing. I don't know.
Diana has lots of rules about whom she's attracted to.
I'm not alone in my rules.
Okay, I'm flattered I made the cut, I guess.
I don't know how to respond to that, so moving on.
Do all your listeners understand that we're married?
Who?
Your alleged listeners.
Mackenzie Davis is also in this movie. We had one of those things where I'm like, she looks familiar. Is she that one person that I want to call her Dakota somebody?
Right.
Yes.
And we had that with Sylvia Hoeks as Love also, right? She looks. I
don't think that she looks like this actress so much as just like, hey, it's a villain second in command badass chick. So is she?
You mentioned Hannah John Kamen.
Yes,
was the person she reminded you of. Also mentioned a bit of like
Sophia
Botella's energy.
Yeah. I
definitely got that.
Not so much the energy; it's just so much being the badass second command female.
Yeah.
So. That, is more deadly than the thing, but because they carry out the orders.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you said there was a bunch of people?
I think you covered them all.
Well, I hope so. Okay, so you mentioned it before about, like, kind of dancing back and forth between should you or shouldn't you?
Yeah.
What was in that brain of yours that made you think this one?
Well, what we're planning to talk about is the relationship between Kay and Joy. And there's a lot of plot in this movie, and I think we were joking back and forth about how we're going to be covering like maybe 20 or 30 minutes total screen time from this 2.5 hour plus movie.
So if the best case scenario, we'll cover that conversation in 49 minutes.
We'll try.
Then it'll all come together full circle.
Yes.
Sweet.
So just to recap the parts that are going to be relevant here, we have Ryan Gosling as Kay,
slash Joe. I can say that now.
Slash Joe, a replicant Blade Runner working for the LAPD who hunts down other replicants who are less obedient and compliant than he is and kills them. And Joy is his virtual digital wife.
Yes. Definitely virtual girlfriend.
Yeah, I know.
Partner.
It's definitely a domestic partnership kind of arrangement. They never refer to them as being married, but it's definitely. I feel like in some of the like fan material or wikis or something, she was referred to as his wife, or at least that's how the audience is kind of meant to think of her. But yeah, so she's like this.
Well, marriage is a construct, and this
so is she.
This is. I was going to say this is a dystopian
right.
thing. Do you think there are any benefits to actually being married?
Like legal benefits?
Right. We'll just say partner.
Sure. But yeah, she's like this. She's this artificial intelligence who we learn is like marketed as a product, and we actually see like ads with her face on it and these slogans.
And other parts of her on it.
That is true. Yeah. Ads in various levels of explicitness with slogans such as, she will do whatever you want. Oh, shoot,
everything you want?
Oh, everything you want to see, everything you want to hear. I think that it kept changing the last word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's, if that sounds like it's setting it up to be like this sort of, cheap, hollow imitation of a relationship, what's really arresting about it is that it's the exact opposite. This relationship between them comes across as so heartfelt and so genuine and so substantial. And Ana de Armas as Joy is just like, serial scene stealer. Like every movie she's in, they put her in these supporting roles, and it's like the most memorable thing. It's like everyone and their brother had that to say about No Time to Die, the James Bond movie that she was kind of shoehorned into, and like only got like one scene in the middle because she was kind of a late addition in the production. And yeah, I think why were we talking about? Oh yeah, when we were talking about Mrs. Winterbourne and we got on the subject of Knives Out, and I said the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the character of Joy in particular. I just walked away. It kind of like occupied a disproportionate amount of my memory of the movie. This relationship is happening against the backdrop of this kind of grim dystopian crime thriller where everyone is kind of, reserved and distant and cold. And the replicants in particular, one of their defining traits is the fact that they're sort of emotionally muted all the time, especially Kay himself, the other half of this romantic relationship, of this domestic partnership. That you have Joy, who's like so affectionate and demonstrative, and it really comes across that Kay values this and he's really getting something out of it, but it's through just like the tiniest little
gestures.
Gestures and signs. And it's I just found it really, really well done and emotionally resonant. And like where it kind of goes through the rest of the movie is interesting. I don't necessarily want to go beat by beat through like the entire plot that touches this relationship, but it also like,
I mean, we're gonna have to.
I'm sure we'll touch on most of that, but to kind of skip ahead to the end, it gets into this question of like, is Joy even a real person? Because like you're definitely like prepared emotionally to accept her as such, and like, oh, you know, he has this like digital virtual partner because he's a replicant and he has no social place in the society and he can't just go out and date. So, you know, he's like part of the suppressed minority and this is, you know, all he can get. And, but, you know, it's like they're both kind of like marginalized and you know, what makes it kind of poetic is that replicants are not recognized by the rest of the society as being real people, even though we as the audience totally sympathize with them as such and understand like, no, they should be accepted as real people. And you know, Kay is our protagonist. And then like Joy is kind of happening on one level down from that, where she's like also not a real person in a completely different way. And she feels real to us. And then toward the end of the movie, we get these really chilling reminders that maybe that isn't true. We see these like advertisements and, you know, when she insists that, you know, she can't just call him Kay anymore. He should have a real name. And she asks to start calling him Joe. And then like in the ad says, you know, it's hinted that that's just like part of the product. She uses the name Joe in the ad and it's like, oh, that was all fake. And that's upsetting. But maybe it's not, you know, if it was real to him. Yeah. So I hope we can unpack that in kind of a coherent way. But to answer your question, despite being a relatively small subplot in this kind of like much more sprawling plot that has to do with a lot of stuff that doesn't really involve Joy, it left a real impression on me as kind of like one of the core interesting parts of the movie.
When you were going through your beats there, I was really fixating on the, you know, here is a cop with a really, really difficult job, obviously, and he's killing replicants, quote unquote, his own kind,
right? And
bringing them back, you know. And the thing is that he is programmed to do that, so it's just his own thing. There's actually some banter between him and his, you know, superior officer, where, you know, she says, "Oh, you need to basically kill a child." And, you know, do you have a problem with that? Or, you know, are you saying no? And he's just like, I didn't know that was an option. Mm-hmm. And he's saying it straight, but at the same time, it's just like, yeah, what option does he really have? And so one of the things that popped into my head when you were talking about it was, if you take Seven, Brad Pitt's character, going through all of this horrible murder shit, and then there's a tiny glimpse of him and his then, you know, wife, Gwyneth Paltrow, and she's just a little bit more light. I mean, now granted, she's not enough to overpower what's happening with the rest of the movie, but what's great about Joy is that she is, but she also has these things that, of course, a regular person can't do. She can she can be very playful in the fact that she can change outfits as quickly as she is.
Yeah, that was fun.
They're bantering with one another. And I think the introduction of her is just like, you know, it's like, oh, I'm home and I'm trying these new recipes. And he's actually cooking for himself for a brief second. It's just like, wait, what's happening right now? She's trying recipes. And then he puts his food down and all of a sudden she saunters in with a plate of like appetizing looking food and dancing around him in a homemaker-y type of, you know, I wouldn't say 1950s, but it was a very floofy skirt.
Yeah, it looked 50s to me. Yeah.
Okay, good.
A traditional homemaker kind of outfit. Yeah,
you're right. But the thing is that it's really sweet because she's doing this and she's flipping back and forth and she's going through these different costumes. But they're talking, and then after he gets his big bonus, after the big kill he did, we see in the beginning of the movie, his present is obviously for him, but it's really for her.
Yeah.
Because now she, you know, there's this thing, you know, just on the top of the ceiling that's making her the hologram that she is. And then...
And it makes it so that she can't leave that room because she wouldn't exist without the projector there to create her image, right?
Right. And so this new thing makes it to where she is able to move independently from
Yeah, it's
that.
a little portable projector that he carries in his pocket, and it just kind of creates an image of her, wherever he is. So.
Right. So it's like this next level of relationship where it's not like, it's, to me, I'm trying to run this parallel thing where it's just like, oh, no. She's not just like the beleaguered girlfriend where it's just like, you never let me in. It's all of a sudden, it's just like, we're going on a road trip.
Right.
And they're doing it together, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that that makes this relationship feel so, if I could use a loaded word here, so human, that they're very asymmetric in how they express their love for each other, which is true of a lot of real life couples. There's that so-called love language phenomenon, and
so his love language is gifts.
Sure.
And her love language is physical touch.
Maybe not that one so much.
Okay, fine.
We'll come to that in a minute. But
what is her love language?
I'm guessing. How do they go? Acts of service, words of affirmation. Doing stuff for him, and just like more conventional demonstrations of affection.
Okay.
And she is touchy in a way that's purely visual because you can sort of see a projection of her holographic hand cradling his face and so on, and he can't feel that, but he can see it, so he knows that the intent is there.
Mm-hmm. And the movie does actually a really good job of really, really messing with us because she's able to go outside. She's feeling rain. We actually had questions about is she feeling the rain? What is she doing?
Yeah, okay. So
because her hologram was showing droplets on her hand, but she's very. The program is crafty that way.
Yeah, I was noticing that the special effects on this character are so good, and just the fact that it makes the hologram look just barely fake enough, and that okay. So for one thing, I thought it was a little bit ironic that Kay is living in this the surroundings are really squalid. It's supposed to be like this very minimal apartment, and yet it's got these just because it's a futuristic setting, it's got these smart home features that he starts pushing buttons on the wall. It's I want that. I want a holographic projector for not for a virtual wife, but there's so much stuff you can do with that. And it's
good save.
Oh, shut up. But yeah, and then to skip ahead a little bit, there's a scene later where Joy is projecting herself onto a real woman so that he can have simulated contact, and the way it just kind of flickers her face in and out, and one hand follows the other is really
mm-hmm.
They could have just oh, the hologram is indistinguishable from a real person, so we're just going to put a real actor in there and have a few effects shots to remind. And if this movie had been made as few as 10 years earlier, that might be what they did. But yeah, the CGI really went the extra mile in making it just look hollow enough. And we like you said, we had a conversation about wait, she stepped outside and she's getting wet, and you can actually see little tiny crackles of the image as the software is adding droplets of water to her skin as she holds her hand out in the rain. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, it's whatever this this product is, and we, like I said, we're reminded rather uncomfortably that it is a product, but it is just super detailed, and you will look at her and just see a real person there interacting with the environment. I also loved when she picked up a book and the real book stayed behind, and she immediately just has a holographic copy of the book in her hand. That was cool too. Sorry, I'm rambling. You wanted to say something?
The thing is, though, is that you're talking about all the interesting ways that she's presented in this short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what should also be noted about this product is that it learns as you go.
Yes.
So out of the box, it starts this way, but it gets to know you. And I think that's really key, because the whole thing about she's talking about I don't remember if she said he doesn't like reading. No, she doesn't like reading, but he does.
Right.
And so it becomes a whole thing. And she's like, I'll read to you, or this, whatever it was. But
yeah, and it even becomes a plot point, because that's why they can't leave a copy of her mind behind in the apartment when he goes on the lam, because it's storing too much information about him that could be used to track him down.
Mm-hmm.
And the point about her learning and adapting to him really just does kind of it makes the character tell us an awful lot about Kay, especially with these tiny glimpses of what we could have gotten in the ads.
Right.
I get the sense that they are marketing Joy the product as mostly like a sexual wish fulfillment kind of thing.
Right.
It especially with one ad where she's just like completely stark naked, and apparently you can just do that outdoors in the future.
She also has like blown out pupils in her eyes,
Yeah,
and
that-
like
yeah.
I forget what that type of hair is, but it's like, is it like a blue, like just straight, not bob, but like,
a-
page,
or like
is that a page boy with
don't-
the bangs?
I probably would have called it a bob. I don't know.
I don't know, but the point is that she's just, you're correct. That's that's probably the wish fulfillment that they're going with, and she's not naked until she brings in that
Yeah,
woman.
the joy we see with Kay is she's very virginal and kind of like they finally like consummate their relationship when she brings in a prostitute to kind of be her body for her and projects her face over.
And that was the most important element I wanted to make sure we didn't skip.
Mm-hmm.
That was her idea.
Yes.
She's the one who called it in. And in fact, the characters actually like are being brought in to get information from him because Kay knows something in the actual plot that is happening in the movie.
It turns out that
they approach him.
The prostitute is not just some random person off the street, but there's a whole thing with the plot. And
Right, well, right. But the thing is
I've kind of forgotten that detail until we watched it this time. Actually, it's like, oh, yeah, that whole thing with it. Yeah.
what with the fact that she's part of a underground type of thing. Okay,
This is Mackenzie Davis's character that we're talking about.
right. But the thing is, what happened and was really funny is that they go to approach him. He's a replicant, and they leave. She's not afraid of that. He basically just kind of gives her the cold shoulder, and I had to ask, like, that ringtone, is that the product, or is that his phone, or is that something? And it is connected to the product itself, because that's when she said, like, you don't like real girls.
Yeah, it's like her ringtone, and I think it'd be it's like the Peter and the Wolf music. I think
I don't remember. I just know it was very specific.
Yeah, and I think you hear it in one of the ads later, maybe. So that is
So, but the thing is that Joy was there. Joy saw that. She's like, not only did she do this, she's like, I saw you liked her.
Right.
Which is, I don't know if that was true. And this is going to give her more humanity than I really want to. But I think what it was is she knew that this particular woman could be a vehicle for her that would ultimately make him happy.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that went all the way through. See, again, I'm really thinking like I don't think he liked her that much. And I think she's trying to do something for herself that would also make him happy. Again, I think I might be giving this thing too much credit. But you know what? I think that's her learning about him enough to where he wouldn't be into it unless this was something that she wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And like I was saying earlier, it's just interesting to think how far outside that might be like the average customer's experience. The fact that she is approaching, this like, finally adding like physical intimacy to the relationship. She's approaching it as in this very shy way, almost virginal, you could call it. And
you did.
I did say that already. I lost track. And and it's just such a stark contrast to the like, nude dancing and the 3-story high advertisements. So
yeah, those were just creepy at the end. So
the black eyes were definitely creepy.
The part about having her go with him when he knows things are getting especially dangerous.
Yeah.
And again, I believe that was her idea. She's like, I want you to take any copies of her.
Load her entirely onto the portable projector thingy.
Yeah. And then
the joystick, as I called it at one point, to Diana's vigorous eye rolling.
Right. And then it hit the point where she said, okay, cool. And now break the satellite antenna.
Right.
Which he did that too. It's like she's participating in all of this.
Yeah. And that raised a point that was called out pretty directly in the movie about he says that like, okay, but if the only copy of you is on this device and something happens to the device, you're gone forever. And she says, just like a real girl.
Yep.
And it is kind of funny that like science fiction in general can just like take you into these situations that seem so strange, even though they should be normal. It's like, oh, imagine, having your whole emotional life poured into this marriage that can be ended by something as simple as a bullet to your wife's brain. Oh, wait, no, that's just real life.
Yep.
So,
yep. Thanks.
Yes. Thanks that I don't want you to be shot.
Why am I the one getting shot in this scenario?
I don't know. Maybe you're being stomped on by.
Yeah, you're stomping on my heart right now. So
Love
again, you notice all of this was her idea.
Yeah.
And what's even better is that the creator of the product, the person at the corporation who's following their everything, the second the connection is severed from the satellite antenna, she immediately gets pissed off and starts to move. And I'm just like, so these things are running autonomously. There's like nothing embedded in them that says this product will always have the ability to be tracked in all ways, shapes, and forms. It's just kind of interesting that way.
Yeah, it does raise that question of to what extent should we consider Joy to be like an actual person, an autonomous person.
I would say autonomous. I wouldn't say person, because this is...
Oh yeah, like having personhood in the philosophical sense versus... Yeah, and I kind of want to get into that in a bit more detail later. But before we get off of your point about how all of this is Joy's idea, I just think that's a really... crucial writing trick, just to make sure that like Kay doesn't become too I'm not going to say like we don't want to make Kay unsympathetic, but just the fact that like it's interesting that being a product, it's almost like she's a possession or property, and part of what makes their relationship so sweet is that he really does treat her as like a partner, as an equal within the constraints of what's possible. If she can't leave her projector device or whatever. And yeah, frankly, I just think it would kind of muddy the waters of like this replicant who's a second class citizen and is basically being the word slave is tossed around several times in this movie, and it's like, yeah, in a sense, Kay is that, and if Joy is, it says a lot that Kay doesn't just want to have a slave of his own. He wants to have a partner. So
I was gonna say it says so much that as somebody who is as limited as he is, his desire is to give her more freedom.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. I suppose any more that you want to talk about with their relationship, which even though it's limited, and I think we covered all the biggest parts.
The consummation scene is if you want to call it that, was again just like really interesting application of the special effects with just like the hologram overlapping what's real, and very, very, very tender, very sweet. Very interesting contrast with it's like, oh, she's the suggestion that she's a robotic sex doll to everyone else. And yeah, just from there my mind kind of goes into this whole like when he does lose her eventually, what is it exactly that he's lost? This and as we were Diane, as we were talking about before the show, this gets into like an entire genre of sci-fi and also a branch of real life philosophy over like what constitutes a conscious mind. And there are other, just in the realm of sci-fi movies, I can name a bunch of movies that like center the entire story around that, whereas in Blade Runner 2049 it's more of a B plot. But there's movies like Ex Machina and Her were the big ones that came to mind, also Westworld, the TV series. And yeah, I took a seminar in college on this exact subject, or specifically what's called philosophy of mind, that goes down to like what makes a conscious mind. Could a computer ever be conscious in a way that a human is, or even like, is it possible to prove that anyone other than you is even conscious? Like if I were to like hypothesize that there are people going around who act like regular humans on the outside, but their brains are just like computers. They don't actually experience or feel anything on the inside, but you can't tell because they respond to all external stimuli. And so like, if I ask you to prove that I'm not, I think philosophical zombie is the term for that, how could you do it? And, do you have an answer to that off the top of your head before I keep talking? Or?
I kind of blanked out for a minute, and
I don't blame you. I'm very boring. I'm sorry.
Am I conscious right now?
Well, do you feel conscious, or how hard did you zone out?
So my thing is like the way that I attach myself to inanimate objects.
Right.
And the joy that I have received from, let's say, that stuffed plush shark you bought me that I named Fred and carried around during my college years when I was practicing for certain class speeches that I needed to make.
Oh, Fred.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But that's kind of my point, though. I can't answer that question.
Yeah, or like some people would even apply that to the bond that you have with a pet because, like, despite being a living thing, it's not a human, but that's still...
Well, I was thinking...
I think we're more on the same page about that, but...
Yeah, you and I are, but I hesitated to bring that example up because for me, that's like a relationship to where it's part of your everyday. So if that's ripped away from you from your everyday, that has more of a detrimental impact of, as opposed to possibly a human relationship.
Well, yeah.
And so if we're talking about like, living, breathing thing versus like human artificial version, this is getting way too... I might start crying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because of just previous experiences of losing loved ones.
Loss is hard. Yeah, that'll be my hot take for the day.
Loss is hard, everyone.
But like I said, there's there's this question in philosophy of mind of like, how can you even or like some people are trying to argue that yes, of course, a computer could be a real mind just as much as a human is, and a lot of other people are coming down on like it's unsolvable or it can't be proved or you only ever really live in your own head. I think I personally kind of come down on that latter side. I'm not a philosophy major. I don't consider myself an expert in this, but
you read a lot of Wikipedia.
I do read a lot of Wikipedia, and I also watch a lot of movies. And bringing it back to the sci-fi movies, it's interesting that like the majority of like these sci-fi franchises generally want you to kind of come down on the side of like, of course, the robots are real people. Like if you're watching Westworld, for example, that like, most of the central characters are the robots, and
I like them more than the humans.
Yeah. And the first Blade Runner movie kind of plays around in this territory a little bit. For one thing, it's a little bit more cagey about what actually is going on inside the replicants. Like we're told that they're bioengineered and there's like a genetic engineering component to creating them, but they're also referred to as robots a few times. And it's like, wait, are they mechanical? Are their brains electronic or squishy?
The original source material, androids.
Yeah, exactly. And Blade Runner 2049, they're a bit more clear about like, oh no, the robots are just like the replicants are not robots, they're just bioengineered people, and the fact that they're being treated as chattel and subhuman is just kind of a moral travesty. And of course you're supposed to accept that, any movie where like the protagonist is one of these people, like obviously Kay is a real person. And I just think it's really interesting that they throw Joy in as this curveball here, because like, just because a replicant is a real person, it doesn't automatically follow that Joy is a real person.
Okay.
And,
sorry, I just keep wanting to interrupt with just like me making the joke. Why was I programmed to feel pain?
Exactly.
But again, that is also the whole point of having them be as realistic as possible as replicants / humans. And now people are pissed off about that because like, oh, you're not a human. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we were talking about that. In fact, I think you were asking like, if replicants aren't supposed to have emotions, why do they bother to program them with memories? It's like, are they trying to make them more human or less human? And
well, yeah, because otherwise, I think it's like the CGI, the uncanny valley thing.
Yeah,
people cannot operate in this capacity if you're just focused on the fact that they're just like, oh God, no.
Yeah, it's hinted that the Wallace Corporation and the Tyrell Corporation in the first movie are trying to have them like be just human enough, kind of trying to have their cake and eat it too. And and of course the fact that these replicants go rogue all the time and have to be hunted down by Blade Runners kind of speaks to the fact that you can't really do that. You can't get away with it. Okay,
so House Tyrell is merging with House Lannister to create I don't know what.
And House Wallace took them over in the last season, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay. So even though we're getting into this huge philosophical question,
if I can bring it back to just like how that resonates with the real relationship, as I was kind of like, because like my first impression off this movie was like the nice parts of Kay and Joy's relationship, just like the quiet domestic scene, because like you know what's hard about movies is like you never just get to see a married couple just kind of like being happy at home together unless like something is going to build on it. But there's still those scenes that in isolation, like, oh, that's a really sweet domestic life. I enjoy that my life can sometimes be nice like that, and that our marriage can be that way.
It's good that you enjoyed those scenes because they gave us enough for us to really, absorb. But that's also a kind of criticism of this whole movie. 2 hours and 44 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I was joking about like, wow, okay, so count how many seconds we spend on a close-up shot of Ryan Gosling remembering something. 1, 2, 3. Like the technician literally says like, no, just remember it. And okay. And she's like scanning his face or whatever. So,
we all want to look at Ryan Gosling for a period of time while he doesn't move.
no complaint.
Whoa, that sounded way too creepy.
Yeah, sorry.
I paused the movie. That's what I meant.
Sorry, sometimes I get nervous when I'm not the most handsome man named Ryan you've seen today.
Ryan Reynolds won't return my phone calls either.
Yeah. What about Ryan Stiles?
Oh, he's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, he's cool. Yeah.
Also taller than you, probably.
Taller than, yeah, I know. How many?
Okay.
But yeah, sorry, and just I know I'm very much kind of brain vomiting right now. When I kind of like take those things together, it's like, oh, I really like this relationship, and also one half of it might not even exist, and I think there's kind of.
Would you say the whole thing doesn't exist?
I
use that as a segue?
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't. I would say that, if Kay is the only like conscious feeling being in this partnership, but if it's real to him, if he's feeling something, then, like I was saying before about like, can you prove that I'm not just a simulacrum of a human? We're no matter how intimate your marriage is, no matter how well you know another person, we're all ultimately kind of trapped inside our own brains, and my experience of you was only through my perception, and that's much like now they're mortal, just like, wait, we're always mortal. That's
Okay, here's an important question. You talked about Kay and his feelings. They go through the baseline, making sure that they're at baseline.
The baseline test.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. So the question is usually, when did they fall in love? But the question is, are they capable of loving? Or my first instinct is, was Joy programmed to love him right out of the box?
Yeah. I mean, I think I hadn't given that much thought before we started talking.
The whole concept of this podcast. Go on.
I was going to say, was Joy programmed to love him that way out of the box? And I was going to say,
no, not that way. Just to love him.
Exactly. Yeah, to love him. I think she was programmed out of the box to have some version of love, or at least what like the product designers might have considered that.
I mean, there's a difference between love and obedience. I bet you this product is taught to obey. But I don't know if they're programmed to love.
Oh, there was a line about replicants and obeying in the movie somewhere. See, that is one of the things that makes this movie great, is the way the themes all like, or I'll interlink. Sorry, I had to.
I'm shaking my head.
Yes.
No. It's really hard to get it down, because it's like programmed out of the box. Replicants, do they feel? Yes, they show emotions, because you see Kay reacting to things in an angry manner. But there's only one instance where he's just like, he's totally flat, in the baseline test, and he's cool, and he's good, he's a cucumber and all this other stuff, and then you see him just flying off the handle for these other things. I'm like, oh, okay. But that's emotion, frustration in like success and not success. I mean, he can flare up his anger when he needs to like beat somebody because he's about to die, so he has like a self-preservation mode too, but love is in there. I don't know if I can ascribe that to these replicants, because I honestly don't know what they are.
Yeah. Replicants are people who are generally emotionally muted, but it's clearly not a hard and fast rule. It would not be correct to say they have no emotions.
I mean, if I could for a second, I would say that Wallace was a nothing in the emotion category. And
Wallace is like a psychopath or something.
Monster.
Comes across as exactly.
He's watching this, replicant, this new thing be born, and he's just like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to monologue around this. I'm going to stab you right in the womb because you can't give me children that are my own thing that I can sell, because I can't make more of these and make a profit. And I'm just like, dear God, 2017 was really onto something that was going to happen in 2022. But
well,
But
I'm glad this movie resonated for you. I
no,
know you don't
resonate
always
is not the word.
enjoy it.
Upset. Upset me. But
it made you feel something.
Does that make me human?
Yes.
Sometimes I bleed. I don't know. Sorry, that's the quote from The Others. I don't know why I pulled that out of my head. Okay. I can't even answer this question of, because the question is supposed to be, when do they fall in love? And I don't know. When she said, now break the satellite link, and he did it. That's like the best that I can do, because they're walking into uncharted territory of actually moving into, now we have something we can lose. He could have always died, but she could have always lived forever. But now her thing is just, there is a possibility of it going away.
Yeah. I think there's actually kind of a neat symmetry with what I was talking about before, with you saying, like, it's hard to judge if what Kay feels is love, considering he has this kind of like intentional emotion stuntedness. And, is he programmed to? Yeah. And I think the flip side of that is, like, we can't even tell if Joy has a conscious mind or if she's just like a carefully programmed, simulation of a person that's meant to, make money and sell this product. And, if in that situation, if you're Kay, like I was saying, you're whether you're a human or a replicant or whatever, you're still trapped in your own head. You can only experience your own perceptions. And, just because you're experiencing your partner on the outside doesn't make the connection less meaningful. It's not required to be a telepath to be in love. You still only, see what's on their face and hear what they say. And by those standards, I think we can say with a lot of certainty that both of them really do love each other. And I would say from the beginning, it's a more downplayed, muted kind of thing. But I would say they're in love from before the first scene when we see them together.
Oh, so okay, so before the first scene,
does that break the format of the show? Does it not allow it if they fell in love before the movie started?
No. We've done some movies where the relationship was established, so it's not such a big deal. No, my concern was more along the lines of what you meant, like the second his credits cleared, that's when they fell in love. Because that's, or the second he entered in his username and password.
I would say 30% from that to when the movie starts, or I don't know. It's part of the but
I assume he had to go through a process.
Yeah, there was there was probably a breaking in process where, well, you know what it's like when you get a new phone or something and it feels weird for a little while.
Well, not for the phone.
No,
if
the phone, yeah.
In essence is what we're talking about. Let me try this. Let me see if I can make it a little bit more human.
Yes, please.
Instead of her being, this thing where the second it's turned on, it's like, boom, it's supposed to do what it wants. I'm imagining that her coding is that she had a friend who really was excited to introduce Joy to Kay, and there was a lot going in there. But the thing is, she still doesn't know everything about him. She's just like, this guy, I think you'd be really good for you. And so then the second she does that, she gets to know him, but it happens to be in his own environment. And it's true. She has a friend with an influence on her saying, I think you'll really like him. Never mind the fact that it is a programming to like him.
Yeah, wait, hold on. I'm so blown away here. So are you suggesting that this friend is like another AI construct? It's like some subroutine where she imagines she has a friend?
It's in her coding to have this thing where it's just like,
I
think I'm going to like this guy.
Like it's an implanted memory, just like the replicants
Why
have.
not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Wow.
Because the thing is like she is prone to like him as he is, but the thing is she wouldn't do that, again, I'm trying to make this human. So it's like he has some sort of reference or endorsement from this thing. This endorsement just happens to be a corporation telling her what to do.
Sure.
So in turn, she's prone to like him. And as it happens, she actually gets to know him. So then it's just like, oh, this is what it is. So therefore, she's able to move forward in that way.
That's interesting. Yeah. And
because I need to give her a little bit of, agency in this.
I mean, it's interesting to think, like you were describing about the learning process, how what we see is her being kind of, like giving, nurturing, pure-hearted, and not like, is still kind of like shy about sexuality and such. Like if all that is not just the like out of the box Joy experience, but what she learned by interacting with him, we can sort of say that like that learning process is,
the falling in love.
And just because she was programmed to like, no matter what kind of person she met and no matter what different things she learned, she would have fallen in love with those traits. But nonetheless, those are Kay's traits. Those are what she did learn about him. And that is what she fell in love with.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, like, she would have fallen in love no matter what, but she wouldn't have fallen in love in that particular way if it were anyone else but Kay. Do you find that satisfying?
I mean, well, on the other end, it's just like, this very, very shut off person. The fact that he's actually willing to purchase something that's more interactive. He could have very easily just gotten something that wasn't a companion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that, that speaks volumes about his character and the implication that he seems so fine, without friends, without colleagues, without peers, no one that he really professionally interacts with besides his boss.
I mean, if you read any type of rom-com where it's just like the very, very straight corporate, this guy, and he's got to learn to love.
Yeah. And clearly,
usually the woman on that side, but go ahead.
And yeah, despite the fact that he is so well set up to exist without companionship, he recognized deep down that he actually did want companionship enough to buy this product. So
sure.
Yeah.
For the purposes of this podcast, that's kind of the best that we can do here. And you hear me always trying to throw an answer in there. 37 minutes and that one, the part where they touched hands. Yeah. Oh my God, the part where they touched hands, kind of.
Yeah, that's true. Aww. And what's that? The connected finger to finger is the. How was it phrased in that test?
Something in the. I don't know.
Interlinked. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I do like your answer of when they decide to go on the land together. I mean, that was
and gave themselves actual stakes.
Yeah, I mean that maybe that wasn't when they fell in love, but that was when it really kind of slammed home for the audience.
Damn right.
Yep.
I know I was emotional.
Yeah, me too.
Because I had to pee because this movie's so long.
Quite long.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, she was crushed to death.
Yes, by a very spiteful villain.
Uh-huh. And he is left bleeding to replicant death on the steps of a building at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I was trying to... I almost lost track of, like, did he have the open-ended lifespan? Because, like, I believe he did not. That's how he was saying he was different from, like, the Dave Bautista character. Or...
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's I guess kind of a parallel to Roy, the Rutger Hauer character from the first movie, how he, as I was filling Diana in on what makes that ending so famous, the fact that, like, in the end, Deckard does not successfully hunt down the last villain, and the villain actually saves his life in an act of mercy right before expiring to his natural 4-year lifespan. And I hope I'm not messing this up, but I think Kay also had a limited lifespan, so it's like, oh, even if he hadn't, put his life in danger and ultimately gotten killed in that final battle, that, he would have only had a few more years to live or something anyway. So he was resigned to that, and it was still, just as poignant. And yeah, like I think I went on my way to also remind you about that, in the first movie, referring to Rachel, the original love interest, it's a shame she won't live, but then again, who does? The fact that, like, if a replicant only has a 4-year lifespan, it's like, well, a human only has a limited lifespan too. It's a different number of years, but ultimately we're all kind of in the same philosophical boat. Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think the way to really, wrap this up for the way I understand the story to be, it's the whole thing was just big, like, he's making a sacrifice for humanity, and that itself is how he's trying to prove his humanity, even though he is not human, quote unquote.
Oh yeah, that's another line of dialogue. How to dying for a cause is the most human thing you can do.
That thing.
Yes.
So basically, I was referring to that. And for me, it would just be really, really fucking stupid if it was just like, yeah, well, so this wound was not fatal, so I'm gonna get myself patched up. I'm gonna get myself a second joy. I'm gonna live forever because I'm that model. No, the whole thing is that he's gonna die right there.
Yeah, and just knowing what we know about them as people, if they weren't in that circumstance, if they had both survived and had an indefinite lifespan, just personality wise, I could definitely see them, retiring to a quiet domestic life and being happy together. And, it's nice to think about what could have been. What?
But they're not together.
No, I said if they were together.
Oh,
right?
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, just...
I think that's why... Okay, suppose he did have one of those lifespans, right?
Yeah.
Not only is he doing this for, is the most human thing he can do, but at the same time, though, is that he lost that, so he's doing this for her.
Mm.
And to me, that's why I'm making him dead.
No, I'm with you, and I just think it's it does resonate with that. You know, it's a shame they don't get to go off and live happily ever after. But then again, who does? You know, it's like
lots of people, they get to live to a natural end rather than a shut down.
Yes, exactly. But yes, but yeah, and this was you know, in Kay's own way, natural end, sacrificing himself for you know a cause that mattered, and yeah, I mean it's nice to envision them being happy together, because like I said, my mind kept drifting back to that first scene where they were eating dinner together, and there's definitely a part of us as the audience that just wants it to be that way, and I guess that's why we watch that scene on repeat, as I've learned from Diana. I don't know.
I mean, I've seen it twice, and that's it. So, are you stealing my tricks?
I mean, I guess I will, in case I ever feel particularly sad for those characters, but
well, that's when you watch the
Knives Out.
No, the fun parts.
Yes.
Not the yeah, exactly. Okay. Any other thoughts you want to share about this?
Oh, I've shared so many thoughts already. It's kind of you to ask. Yeah, just it's a little bit daunting to talk about Blade Runner in general. Actually, I was I guess we skipped over the like, what's your history with this movie thing, and
it was more along the lines of what made you pick it, because
it's
only been around since 2017.
Yeah, and we saw it, I guess, like shortly after it came out, but like I guess I have a bit of a history with like the original Blade Runner movie, and that like it kind of loomed large in my mind as this like thing of geek culture, and people get like really worked up about it, and I didn't see it until later in life. It was one of those movies that I kind of like knew a lot about through reading it on IMDb, and when I finally saw it, it is a challenging movie. I actually feel like I understood it a lot better watching it the second time, in part just because it doesn't really like hold your hand plot wise, and I almost felt like I was you know, kind of missing something in the larger sci-fi geek culture of like not really having, you know, wrap my head all the way around that movie. And it is a really interesting gift having this sort of like follow up to it that is actually good and substantial, and not just something that the fans are mad exists in the first place. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have given it as much thought as I did if we hadn't revisited it here. So, you know, thank you for finally going along with me on this. And it's a wonderful time to be dipping into the cyberpunk genre. You know, Cyberpunk 2077 just got its first big content patch, and the most recent Magic the Gathering set is cyberpunk themed. So I was raring to go. It's all up in my head right now.
Well, you've been wanting to do this for the podcast for a while, so you were raring to go to talk about this for a while.
Yeah, and the time had to be right, because it is a fatiguing movie to watch. It kind of demands a lot of its audience, both in terms of like emotional investment and just time, and the plot being rather dense. So.
Interesting. So, I mean, I would be horrifically insecure if, you know, Ana de Armas wasn't this doting brunette with dark eyes. I mean,
is that
any other woman would be insecure about that?
Oh, but not you.
I take it as a compliment. So the fact that I think you have like Gosling-esque features.
Aww.
Would this be the couple that plays us in the movie of our lives?
Ooh.
No.
No,
because why would that be made into?
We're not
a movie?
famous enough, and we can't afford them.
Well, yes and yes.
Is this a Halloween couples costume for us, or
no? Oh, I mean, Rachel was a nice costume. It was a little bit more given, but
it's a little bit more recognizable.
Yeah, Joy has like 10
costumes for one thing.
I'm not going out naked with the purple hair and the blown out eyes. Okay. No, I'm not.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I am not programmed to be obedient that way, so
I wouldn't expect that of you.
Thanks.
But yes, you do have those big brown doe eyes that
they're closed right now because I know you want to look at them.
Okay, I still know they're there.
Anything else?
There's like I said, there's so much about this movie. I feel like I must be forgetting something, but no, you've been very indulgent with all my thoughts so far. So yeah, thanks for shooting the breeze with me about this.
Okay, so that's Blade Runner 2049 as far as we can actually get done in one sitting.
Hooray.
Which it actually took us a few sittings to watch it the second time.
Yes. It's okay.
Okay, so Ryan said a lot, but, if you have any sort of philosophical brain dumps you want to, give, you can always catch you on Twitter or where?
At Ryan Skonnord. And if you don't know how to spell that, you can find me in the retweets from HEAMCast.
There you go. So, yes. So you can find us on Twitter, Instagram at HEAMCast, HEAMCAST. Let us know what you think about this movie. Do you like this movie? Was it, something that was... I don't know. Should we be inviting the Blade Runner fanboys to say things?
I would love to hear people's take on whether Joy is sentient or otherwise a real mind.
Interesting. Okay. I think that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you.
All right. Okay. So until next time, may your aftermath be happy.